What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Man, I was looking through the comments for the first Infinity video we did, and like, people were screaming at me to finish the rest of it. People were just like, you gotta finish Infinity. Man, it is an amazing story. It is so good. Like, I understand where you guys are coming from. But yeah, okay, so in the first video, like we talked about how we had two stories going on at the same time. You have the Avengers in space, because you have the Builders who are just like this really ancient race who were responsible for basically the creation of everything, and we're just like running across the cosmos, just like obliterating all these planets and stuff. And so the Avengers like basically went to go check it out at the request of like the members of the Galactic Council and so on. And so basically you had like this army composed of all these empires across the universe, which had all banded together for the purpose of trying to take on these Builders, and they all got deuced on, like they all got wrecked. They just weren't prepared. And then like you had Thanos who invaded Earth with the Black Order, and like they show up and they crush everybody, like almost everybody. Wakanda's like the only country that really succeeds in fending anybody off because, you know, Black Panther's a beast. So like picking up with this whole battle that goes on with the Avengers and the Builders, the Galactic Council and everything, like it's really just retreat, right? Like the first skirmish they engaged in, they were just crushed by the Builders. And so what they ended up doing was taking refuge on like a massive citadel of sorts. But the Builders started sending out all these sentient drones that were just like destroying this facility. And it was a message, right? It was a message going out to the universe. You can run, you can hide, but it won't last long. We will find you no matter where you go. And so what this did is it put all these different races in a position where they had to make a choice. Either they could bend, they could acquiesce, and they could give up to the Builders, or they could fight to the death and die. And like almost all these empires, you know, every single one of these races that had spanned for thousands and millions of years, it was basically just giving up. The Centaurians were the first ones to fall, the Chameleons fell next, and then the Kree. Now these are all races that have appeared over the course of various eras in Marvel Comics. Now this also still brings together the Galactic Council. Of course, you have Ronan the Accuser, who speaks on behalf of the Kree Empire, and then you have people like Gladiator of the Shi'ar, and then you've got Jason of Spartax, the father of Peter Quill. You've got all these people who are just kind of banded together. And for the most part, the Avengers were never allowed into the Galactic Council because everybody hates Earth. But this whole thing deals with the idea of like Captain America stepping in alongside Thor as an advisor of sorts, and really just like a handful of the Avengers, and everybody speaking as part of this Galactic Council. But these are all the various empires that exist all throughout space. So you've got the Brood, you've got the Skrulls, you've got the Kree, Annihilus, you have all these different races that exist there, and they're all basically, you know, more or less saying the same thing. Everyone except Captain America. The answer that's being given by virtually everybody is no victory can be found here. The only real option we have is to basically give up. But Captain America's response is, but why though? Like, we can win. All we have to do is find a way to win. Now this is kind of ironic because Captain America is talking to people who are part of races and empires. They were mature races when humanity was fledgling, when humanity was just now emerging onto the scene. And so what Captain America says is that at this point, we have to find a way to bolster our forces. And when we faced off against the Builders, some of our number were captured. If we can rescue them and rescue those who were not necessarily part of our teams, but have been captured anyway, we can increase our number in that capacity. And it's a smart move. Liberate innocent people, liberate refugees, liberate the superheroes, and all of them will rally to our side. And that's what happens. Captain America, you know, and Thor says, we need bait. We need somebody to go in there, and we need someone to dupe the Builders into focusing on us so they don't look at what's going on over here. And that's exactly what happens. Captain America and the Galactic Council send their ships in, and they just operate as bait. They go in, they fight against the Builders, and the Builders see this as, why are they here again? Like, are they really wanting to fight again? And that's how it's designed to come across. Be a distraction. Take their attention away from what you're really trying to achieve. And what we end up finding out is the Builders made a mistake. The Builders made a huge mistake. They made a very, very costly mistake, because once we get in there, once some of the forces of Captain America's armies get in there, then they start liberating different Avengers. One of the Avengers they liberate is the Incredible Hulk. And let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you something. The Incredible Hulk breaks out and just starts crushing everything, like literally destroys the ship on his own, just starts ripping through every single device he can find. From there, like they immediately teleport him out. But the cool thing is that they still have to destroy these other two weapon ships that are controlled by the Builders. So they in turn send in Thor along with a handful of other people. And of course, they're able to pull it off by just destroying things. But what this does is it brings in Starbrand. Now, Starbrand we talked about before, right? Like it's this idea that you have what's called the White Event. And the White Event was basically an initiation that took place, that whenever there was like a massive universal threat, really once every generation, a new person would be chosen to be the Starbrand. But it was one of these things where they would have however much power they needed for a particular point in time. It's really kind of a caveat. It's one of those things where it's just sort of like, here's a character that lets me do whatever I want to do at any particular point in time, but they're not omnipotent and indestructible. They can be destroyed. But Starbrand serves this purpose. He basically destroys a huge portion of the Builder army, which in turn can like allow some measure of the tide to turn. But again, this is not the full brunt of the Builder army. This is just a portion of it. Picking up with Attilan, Thanos shows back up to the Inhuman city because remember, Black Bolt, the king of the Inhumans, was told, you've got 24 hours. When Corvus Glaive showed up at the home of the Inhumans, he said, you've got 24 hours. Either you pay the gauntlet or you pay the tribute. The gauntlet is Thanos comes here and razes this city to the ground. The tribute is you kill all of your kids between 16 and 22 and bring us their heads as proof. Black Bolt says no. He says, no, I'm not killing any of our kids. Not only that, he basically evacuates the entire, like has the whole city of Attilan evacuated so that when they show up there, when Thanos shows up there, there's nothing left. The only exception is Lockjaw and Maximus the Mad, the brother of Black Bolt. Now, Maximus the Mad being here serves a couple purposes. The first is that all of the Inhumans are going through the teleportation device known as Eldrak, who was an Inhuman at one point, or I guess he was, I guess he was, and once he went through the mist, he basically became a door that's almost like the Siege Perilous, that when you go through it, it takes you wherever you need to be at that particular point in time. But Maximus the Mad and Lockjaw, the teleporting dog, are really the only ones left. And Maximus basically activates a massive bomb underneath Attilan itself. So when Thanos shows up, Thanos arrives and says, look, man, you had 24 hours and your 24 hours is up. Now I'm Thanos, man. So like, it's nothing for me to destroy this place. If I obliterate the entirety of Attilan, for you, it's the end of times. For me, it's a Tuesday. So we can do whatever you want to do. Like, it doesn't matter to me, man. Tell me what you want to do. Do you want to die or you just want to sacrifice your kids? And Black Bolt just screams at Thanos. Now, old school Black Bolt would have probably obliterated the earth had he screamed like this as loud as he possibly could. But Black Bolt's power has been toned down over the years to make his character one that can be defeated for the most part. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. For example, like if you read House of M, he whispers at the villain Apocalypse, destroys Apocalypse, and wipes out what amounts to about 100 acres of land, probably a little bit more. Whereas if you have this, like he screams and not nearly as much destruction happens. So it really kind of depends on what era you're talking about. Now, House of M Black Bolt was stupidly overpowered. Like he was criminally OP. It was insane. But Black Bolt's screaming serves a couple of purposes. The first is to try to destroy Thanos, and the second is to activate the Terrigen bomb, to basically detonate this Terrigen bomb on Earth. Now from here, we transition to a city called Orolin, which is basically hidden on Earth. Now this is very, very important because really up until this point, there wasn't really any such thing as like secondary Inhuman cities, right? Like in Marvel Comics, you had Attilan and that was it. What Attilan did and how it functioned was contextual. For example, Attilan was basically a hidden city on Earth where the Inhumans lived. And it was that way forever and ever and ever. And then Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee in 1998 wrote Inhumans Volume 2. They basically told this 12-issue story where Black Bolt tricked his own people. He literally orchestrated an assault on Attilan so that his people would finally agree with him when he says, we need to leave Earth. And so Attilan took up residence on the blue area of the moon. That led into the events of War of Kings when eventually the Attilans took over the entirety of the Kree Empire. Eventually they came back. They ended up, returning back to Earth again. And then they just sort of reside above the city of New York. And they've been there ever since. But there have never really been other Inhuman cities. This is really the first time that we start to see Marvel expand this. Now, Jonathan Hickman really did this for the sake of this story. And the reason why is because where you ended up having like the main city of Attilan where the Inhuman royal family has always resided, there were members of the royal family who defected, or even just like other members of the Inhuman society that basically broke off. But in the city of Orolin, what you have is a shard of the Terrigen crystals. And what it does is it allows this city to basically implement Terrigenesis among its own people, but only once every generation. And so the result is that they hope that people will gain like the best minds or different abilities or what have you, but we pick up with a guy named Thane. And Thane is basically just a healer. That's really kind of like the quote-unquote gift that he has. But the indication here is that he's never actually been exposed to Terrigenesis. He's really more of just like a medic, but he's not one of those people who's been chosen for Terrigenesis. What ends up happening is that when this bomb goes off, the Terrigen mist spread throughout the world. Now, for those of you guys who are wondering in Marvel Comics right now, and especially the events of like Inhumans versus X-Men, why the Inhumans had risen to prominence the way they did, this is the reason why. This is the story that saw the detonation of the Terrigen bomb and the Terrigen mist spreading throughout the rest of the world. And what Marvel did was actually pretty cool, because what you had was a line of stories that came immediately after this, written by Charles Soule. So you had Inhumanity, you had Inhuman, that basically explored like the aftermath of these Terrigen mists spreading throughout the world, and all these, basically hidden Inhumans that didn't know they were Inhuman, suddenly going through the process of Terrigenesis out in the middle of nowhere, in subway stations, walking along the street, in office buildings, and Capitol buildings, all throughout the world. Leaders even became Inhumans, not realizing they were Inhuman the entire time. The problem is that Marvel squandered that, and instead going into all new new All Different Marvel, they push the X-Men into the background. They try to promote the Inhumans, which everybody knows doesn't work because nobody really cares about the Inhumans. And so because of this, like with this bomb going off, Thanos is like, okay, man, so like that's your answer. Your answer is that you want to fight, then we can fight. Just be aware, man. Like when you fight me, I fight to the death. I'm probably gonna kill you because like you've irritated me, and that's just what's gonna happen. So like immediately he starts screaming, right? He's like, where's my son? Tell me where my son is, because he knows the Inhumans know the location of his son, but he won't, like Black Bolt won't give it up. Now, of course, at this point, pretense is out the window. Thanos had basically lied to the Black Order saying, well, it's a tribute is what it is. These are the things I demand. Just do what I tell you to and don't ask questions. Now, Black Bolt figured out earlier on that the whole subtext was that Thanos was hunting for his son. And because Black Bolt knows that, and Thanos knows Black Bolt knows that, then we're just throwing all pretense out the window. And it's just like, okay, you know that I'm here looking for my son. Tell me where my son is. And if you don't tell me, I'm going to destroy you and I'm going to destroy everything you care about. Now, what this does is it leads in to one of the most beastly moments in the history of comics. Dude, it's like one of the greatest Thanos moments of all time. Black Bolt goes to scream and Thanos is just like, you know what, dude, enough, man. If this is how it's gonna be, he's like, fine then, man. Like, keep your secrets, carry them with you to the grave. Like, smashes his head in the ground. I'm just like, dude, Thanos, how beast are you? Like, knocks out Black Bolt in one hit, and he's like, fine, if this is how it's gonna be, then like, I will find my son myself, and I'll kill him myself. That boy's gonna die. And with Thane having undergone Terrigenesis, then his Inhuman genes are activated, and suddenly his powers begin to emerge, although he doesn't really have control over it. Now, at this point, this is when the story gets so good. Thor fans, if you are a fan of Thor, now is your time to shine. Because what happens is Thor shows up, right? Like you have the builders who are on Kree, and like Captain America's like, okay, so like basically we have to surrender. Like we have to give up. So they send a guy to Kree, right? You know, to the Kree world of Hala, and like Ron and the Accusers is like, there is, Captain America and his forces, they're sending an emissary here to basically surrender, to give up to you guys. And so Thor shows up, and Thor's talking to this builder. They're told, look, you can't be armed. So Thor's like, whatever, throws his hammer into the sky, says, okay, fine, I'm unarmed. So the builder's talking to him. Thor's like, look, I came here to discuss terms of surrender. And the builder's like, no, there are no terms. There's you give up and you take a knee, or like I kill you and then we destroy the rest of your allies. So like, what's it gonna be? And so like, it's crazy, right? Because like, while this is happening, like everybody's praying, like all the accusers are there, and like the Galactic Council's watching this, like all eyes are on Thor. So the builder's like, take a knee. And so Thor just kneels. Thor kneels down. He's like, okay, fine, I surrender. We take a knee. And so like, it's funny because the builder starts talking trash, right? He's like, humanity's place is to take a knee. Like your place is below us. We're builders. People don't want you here. Like no one wants you here. So we are going to do the universe a favor and we're going to eradicate you. Suddenly they hit, like there's this thing, like, you're with like Captain America and those guys, and they're like, hey, Gladiator, like we have incoming. And he's like, what is it? And Captain America's like, it's a reckoning is what it is. Thor's hammer comes flying back down. Bam! And it goes punching right through this builder. Punches a hole right through him. And Captain America's like, got him. If they can be broken, they can be killed. That's it. They're like, we can destroy these guys. We can kill builders. They're not indestructible. They're highly durable, but they're not indestructible. And so Thor's like, all right. He's like, Ron and the Accuser, got a question for you. And Ron is like, what's up? He's like, do you have free men and women here? And Ron is like, yes. And he's like, do these free men and women, will they fight for what they believe in? Ronan says, yes. Thor rallies the entire Kree army to their side. An army of thousands and thousands of people, rallies them all and says, it's time for battle. And Captain America's response, when the question is asked by Gladiator, like, what comes next? Captain America's response is, now we win. Now we finally take back the universe. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.